What do you say? What do you know? It's the full Monty Sports Show. It is Taco Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. I am your host, Monty Perez, aka the Sports Whisperer. I want to thank everyone who tuned in last week. We had 31 states tune in across the country to the full Monty Sports Show. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're getting more popular, as you can see here. Last week, I typed in sports show on a random computer, and look what came up first: the full Monty Sports Show. I used to say we were trending number one. That's probably a little misleading, but we are now number one. We passed that pesky Norm McDonald, who probably has a $1 million more budget than we have. So I want to thank all of you so much for tuning into the full Monty Sports Show. Our goal is to do this 5 days a week, and we can only do that with your help. So how do we do that? How do we go about making this show go on the air 5 days a week? Well, it's real simple. First, give us a thumbs up on this show. And of course, subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel. Tell a friend to subscribe and let's get that numbers up. Like I said, we can only do that with your help. And one of the reasons why we've become so popular, it's not me, it's the guests we have. We have the best guests all across the country, and tonight is no exception. Once again, the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew. Big round of applause for those guys. I love having these guys on. We all have different opinions. And it definitely makes the show fun to have people who are definitely not in sync with me and giving me different opinions. So can't wait to have them on. But we start each show with the good and the bad and the ugly. And before we get to the good and the bad, the ugly, this portion of the show is brought to you by BeamOrganicsCot.com. Go to BeamOrganics.com. They create the highest quality functional supplements for better balance, performance, recovery, and sleep, and is trusted by partners and the wellness community. BeamOrganics.com is getting more and more popular every day. I see them on Facebook. I see them on social media. Again, go to BeamOrganics.com and check it out. All right, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is really shocking to me, guys. This is really shocking to me. I couldn't believe this when I saw this. So let's listen to this, right? I don't really follow tennis that much. I did as a younger guy, not anymore. But Novak Djokovic came all the way back after dropping the first two sets to beat Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-7, 2-6, 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 in the French Open for his 19th Grand Slam. His 19th Grand Slam title. Second trophy at the French Open moves him one major championship away from 20, which would tie legendary tennis players Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. Now, growing up, when I thought of tennis legends, I thought of John McEnroe, Beyond Board, Jimmy Connors, Ivan Lendl. These guys were all legendary tennis players. And now, of course, you have Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. No way in hell, if I was at a trivia contest and someone said, hey, who's number two on all-time Grand Slam tournaments, would I say Novak Djokovic? But he's 19 away. He's healthy, where these two guys have struggled with health over the years. He's going to be the all-time leader in championships, and no one knows it, right? Because when you think of the modern-day tennis player, these are the two guys you think of. So great job by him. 19 Grand Slam titles. 19 Grand Slam titles. And when I saw it, I was like, this has got to be a typo. It wasn't. So good for him. Good for him. Again, no one knows that he's number two. I mean, even diehard tennis fans were probably shocked at that. Even diehard tennis fans were shocked at that. All right, so that's the good. Now let's go to the bad. Denmark team doctor Morten Bornsen said Christian Eriksen suffered cardiac arrest and that he was gone. He was dead before he was resuscitated over the weekend. Bosun led the work in giving Eriksen CPR. The Danish legend Peter Schmidl slammed the UEFA for the lack of compassion when it allowed Denmark with Finland to continue after Eriksen collapsed. Look, guys, sometimes sports, life is bigger than sports. I mean, about a month ago, I saw a Met player get beamed in the head. He had a broken nose, broken cheekbone, and players were devastated. Look at the reaction of these guys. They're crying on the field. How do you continue to play this game? Again, sometimes life is bigger than sports. Thank God the doctors were able to bring him back to life. But I got to be honest with you. They should have canceled the game. They should have canceled the game. No play. And then people say, oh, win it for him. When you're worried your teammate and in some cases your best friend is dying, how are you supposed to focus on a soccer game? So that's the bad. And now to the ugly. Look, before Le'Veon Bell sat out with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was number one all time in yards per scrimmage. Better than Barry Sanders, better than Walter Payton, better than Emmitt Smith. He was on pace to be a Hall of Famer. But he left the Steelers and he signed with the Jets. And I got to be honest with you, he was a model citizen in New York. He was a model citizen in New York. He didn't cause problems, but his production was terrible. The Chiefs picked him up. They go to the Super Bowl. And Le'Veon Bell says, I would rather retire than play for Andy Reid. I would rather retire than play for Andy Reid. Now, I'm just going to say this. Since he left Steelers, he's been irrelevant. He's been irrelevant. Part of that has to do he played with the crappy-ass Jets and Adam Gase, who's terrible. Okay? So Adam Gase, the quarterback killer, the offense killer. Everywhere Adam Gase goes, the team gets worse offensively. But to come out and say that, here's the deal. I don't care if Le'Veon Bell feels that way, but walk softly and carry a big stick. You haven't been productive since 2017. That's the last time he rushed for over 1,000 yards and had 10 or more touchdowns. Why are you going to come out against Andy Reid, who's beloved by coaches and the NFL? If you didn't like being with Andy Reid, so be it. But you're at the end of the career. We see all the time guys who may not have the most skill, but they're good people in the locker room. Le'Veon Bell is literally talking and playing his way out of millions and millions of dollars. Again, you're entitled to your opinion, but when over the last 5 years your career goes down here, you just sound like a bitter, disgruntled man. Either one of two things in here. Either he doesn't realize that his skills have diminished over the last 3 years, or he's just a cancer everywhere he goes. One thing I will say about Andy Reid, I've had problems with Andy Reid for how he is as a father, okay, off the field. If you just Google Andy Reid's kids, they have had all sorts of trouble with drugs, alcohol, breaking the law. But as a coach, players love him. Le'Veon, just leave Kansas City and say it was time to move on. Again, you're playing and talking your way out of millions of dollars because teams aren't going to want a guy in the locker room who's not producing and who's basically just talking bad about every team he's ever went. People say this all the time. You go to a job and the job doesn't work out. You're dating a man, you're dating a woman, that doesn't work out. Your family doesn't talk to you. Eventually you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, maybe it's not them, maybe it's not me. But I think Le'Veon Bell surrounds himself with yes men. So when you're surrounded by sycophants and yes men, you think you can't do any wrong. And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, before we get the Nuts and Bolts Sports crew on, let's do something we love to do. Let's surf the crowd, get the comments coming. I don't know. Grape Fest. You're saying my shirt is Grape Fest. That's funny. That's funny. All right. Yeah. Listen, I don't know if he's got a screw loose, Greg, but there's definitely something wrong about Le'Veon Bell and what he's doing. Just, leave the team, move on. You went to a Super Bowl. Here's what I know. The Chiefs won a Super Bowl without you. They lost with you on the roster. So again, sometimes you got to look at yourself and say, you know, it's not always them, and that's part of growing. That's part of life. You got to take blame. You got to take ownership, and a lot of athletes don't do that. All right, let's bring on the nuts and bolts sports crew. We have Tyrese, we have Dom, we have Edwin. How you guys doing tonight?
Sounds
Doing
great.
good. Doing great.
Okay, Dom, we're going to start with you. There are a few coaching openings. My
Hmm.
first choice for the Celtics. Okay, my first choice for the Celtics would be Mark Few of Gonzaga. He's great at player development, something you do not see today in the NBA. Brad Stevens can mentor him because he knows what it's like coming from college. Mark Few is a very good adjustment guy, X's and O guy. Who are you taking if you are the Celtics?
If I'm the Celtics, I I like Mark Few. I like the idea of it. However, I think when you look at the makeup of this team and the fact that they do have some young emerging superstars who probably are going to want the input and just might have, not necessarily saying that anyone on that team has egos now. I think they would probably respect someone who's more, I would say, proven in the league. So bringing someone from college, I could see where that could work because I do like Mark Few and I think he's done a terrific job at Gonzaga. I do think it would benefit, especially just like I said, having young superstars who are really emerging into that, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, getting someone. I'm the biggest fan of Becky Hammon, and I would love for her to get this position in Boston. Me personally, I think it's a great spot for her to go. If you are going to leave San Antonio, because it looks like they're kind of just serving that job up to her on a platter for when Greg Popovich leaves. If you're going to go somewhere other than San Antonio, why not go to Boston where you have a great culture, you have a city that is crazy about basketball, great history there, great young pieces, and then you do have Brad Stevens up now in a higher office who can kind of help guide you along the way since this is your first coaching job.
You know, the only thing I would say with Becky Hammon, and we'll get to that later, is
Mm-hmm.
Boston, like New York, like Chicago, the media is all over. I want Becky Hammon to go somewhere where she can learn on the job. There's not 50 report. There's going to be a slew of reporters around her wherever she gets the head coaching job. But I would say a little low key for me would be better. But I think Becky Hammon's going to succeed wherever she goes. All right, Tyrese, I'm going to first of all, people complimenting you about your background here. Really happy. LC saying, great background there, the plant, everything. Really liking what you're doing. So
I appreciate
congrats to that. Tyrese, I think I'm going to go here when it comes to the Pacers. My first choice would be Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson was a beloved player there. The Indiana Pacers back in the day with Mark Jackson running the point, got to an NBA Finals. Well respected. I think that young players as well as veterans would really listen to him. Who's your choice for the Indiana Pacers?
Mark Jackson actually wouldn't be a bad idea to have for a team such as the Pacers, just because they also have a young culture. They're trying to build a winning culture within Indiana. They've had some years they've been in the playoffs. They have some years they've been up and down with their seasons, and they have coaches go in and out, especially the past couple of years. So I feel Mark Jackson is a good choice, but I feel another name that should be within that discussion is Chauncey Billups as well. I feel Chauncey Billups is another player that the culture that Indiana would embrace. And I feel that having a player on the sideline, especially with a young team, can actually work, especially going into for the team to think about their future. They're trying to develop Miles Turner and everybody on the team. They want Sabonis to emerge into a superstar. So I feel Mark Jackson or Chauncey Billups will be a really good choice for Indiana.
Yeah, I see. I know Portland is very high on Chauncey Billups, which that kind of really bothered me because I thought Becky Hammon would be a great fit there. But Edwin, back to you. I mean, start off with you here. Last but certainly not least, Sam Cassell has been an assistant for years. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to turn around the Orlando Magic. They've been a disaster for years. They traded their stars away. So it's a total rebuild. I like the young coach and Sam Cassell. One thing about Sam Cassell, everywhere he goes, people love his feistiness and they love his basketball IQ. Turned the Timberwolves around after winning a title his rookie year and his second year with Houston. Do you like that for Orlando? Or are you going in a different direction?
So I actually do like Sam Cassell for the Orlando Magic. I mean, he does his job well in terms of get the best out of players. But for me, I'm actually liking a different option here. I'm going to go with Charles Lee. You know, he's worked under Mike Budenholzer. He's worked for the Atlanta Hawks, and two teams who are doing really well right now. I might add. You know, those two teams are doing great in the playoffs as we speak. And for Charles Lee, he's also a guy that has been known to get the most out of players as well too. So I'm looking at him. I'm saying, well, like you just said before, you know, the Atlanta Magic are about 2 years, 3 years away from, you know, a reconstruction, a build, and where they can possibly compete again in the playoffs. So I look at that and I see, well, we just need for him to get the best out of the players right now. That's the main goal. You know, it's a small market, not really a place where free agents would come in anyway. But if he finds a way to get the most out of players, I think that'd be a success in his own.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the NBA, and this is why we'll go to my last point here with the Portland Trailblazers. The NBA is a progressive league. Right? Baseball, it's old fashioned guys, over 50 tradition. The NFL tries to be progressive, but there's too many hypocrisies going on. They stand for breast cancer awareness, but if someone beats their girlfriend, they get a slap on the wrist. Someone beats their wife. But the NBA is progressive. Oregon is a very progressive state, so that's why I think Becky Hammon would fit in right away. And you may see, we always talk about small markets in Orlando, small markets in Portland, Minnesota, which hasn't won free agency. You may see people who are for women's rights, LGBT progressive players say, hey, you know what? I want to play for Becky Hammon because I want a woman to succeed here. But I'm hearing Chauncey Billups. We'll go back to you, Dom, because you started with Becky Hammon. I think she'd be great in Portland.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm one of Becky Hammon's biggest fans. I think she'll be a good head coach no matter where she goes. I do like the idea, though, and I understand why Portland is eyeing Chauncey Billups so much. The idea of, and granted, Damian Lillard is already unlocked, so I don't know if you can unlock him anymore. But the idea of pairing Chauncey Billups with Damian Lillard, Chauncey obviously being someone who won a ring, someone who knows what that grind is like, and Dame, I think, emulates that tough mentality of kind of making your own path, maybe not necessarily following the conventional way or doing what everyone else is doing, really having a kind of self-made want to beat the best type mentality. I think pairing him up with Chauncey Billups would be great for that team. I think he, more than anyone, could probably get the most out of Damian Lillard. And that's what you really have to squeeze out. If Portland really wants to try and win a championship, get the most that you can out of Damian Lillard. You do have to rebuild this team around him because we've seen as of recently what they have on the roster right now is just not enough. But I like Chauncey Billups in Portland. It makes a ton of sense to me that they're eyeing him.
I'm going to share a story here. When Chauncey Billups went to New York, it's the last time the Knicks, other than this year, were in the playoffs and a competitive team. They won 54 games that year. They played a game on a Sunday afternoon. The Knicks won. It was early on in the season. They fly to, I forget what city. It might have even been Orlando. Chauncey Billups takes the whole team out to dinner. It's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Carmelo, Amari, all these guys are like, all right, we're going to the clubs. And Chauncey Billups says, no, you're not. He's like, when we're on the road, and this is with Rasheed Wallace, he's like, when we're on the road, curfew's 11 o'clock. He's like, you could do whatever you want to do, but I'm checking the rooms. And they knew right then and there, when Chauncey said something, everyone listened. He's an absolute leader. I think he overachieved. I always like backup quarterbacks to be NFL coaches. I always like point guards who necessarily didn't have the most talent, like a Steve Kerr, who was so smart, but they just weren't skilled. Chauncey Billups made his career by hard work and being smart. So I think wherever he goes, it'll be a tremendous fit.
Very true.
Okay, we're going to move to free agents and talk about where they're going to end up. You mentioned it, Dom. Tyrese, we'll start with you. If I'm Damian Lillard, I say, look, this is who I want. I want this coach. I want us to go after these players. I want us to trade these players. One of the reasons why I love this gift right here is look at the guy in the red shirt in the background, just stalking him. Like, come on. But if I'm Damian Lillard here, they don't meet my demands, I'm out.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And Damian Lillard is in a position where he can actually make demands for that franchise. He's done so much for the franchise during his tenure in Portland. So I feel that if Portland doesn't make any big moves this free agency, this may be Dame's time. So I feel that, Portland, they've achieved, they've most definitely had times where they've made the conference finals. Dame has performed. He's carried this team, especially during this playoffs. He's tried his hardest, but I feel that overall that the team has to get better. The team isn't going to get any further without them having the appropriate surrounding cast, the supporting cast for Dame. So I feel that the front office has to work hard to get a decent coach, to surround Dame with reliable players to help him get further in the playoffs. And I feel that if not, then Dame is going to be waving his way out of Portland.
Listen, there's something to be said about being loyal, but I've been at jobs where I've stayed too long. I've dated women where I've stayed too long. There comes a point in your life where you got to say, hey, listen, this is not elevating me. Damian Lillard doesn't want to go out and have to score 55 points every night. So, Edwin, my next question is, are you trading CJ McCollum? Who are you getting for him? Give me a scenario here. Will he be back if you're Damian Lillard? They're very close. They're very good friends. But I'm sorry, he's not doing it. CJ McCollum, to me, would be perfect coming off the bench as a six man and run the team when Lillard's on the bench.
That would be a good scenario. He would be a good option for them to run that 6-man of the year, possibility, and for them to run that 6-man unit. But for me, I would actually trade CJ McCollum, to be honest with you, because I think that the Portland Trailblazers and their issues lie deeper than Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum as it may stand. The team, as Nam just said, needs a whole lot of instruction, right? Dame, for me, he needs a bench, right? He needs a guy that could come off the bench and score and give him some much needed minutes, because as I mentioned before, they ran an 8-man lineup and it didn't prove to no avail in the playoffs. They were pretty much stuck with that 8-man lineup, and everything cracked down after that. So for me, I'm looking for bench options. I'm looking for guys who can come in and do like a solid, consistent job when they come off the bench. And if that includes keeping CJ McCollum, then so be it, But if it does include getting some better players to fill in the whole roster, to make the whole roster a much more deeper roster come playoff time, then I'm all for it.
Okay, Dom, what are we doing here in LA? This is the biggest trade that I've heard. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Kyle Kuzma for Buddy Hield. They're also talking about, listen, I don't want to bring DeMar DeRozan in here. Everyone's talking about DeMar DeRozan coming home, and here's why. DeMar DeRozan is one of the worst three-point shooters in the NBA. He's terrible. He's a mid-range guy who's past his prime. Can he get 15 off the bench? Yeah, but late in games, LeBron needs someone who's going to shoot threes, and that's not him. So the Lakers have to make a lot of changes. Obviously, AD's standing there. Talk about some moves that they would make, and are you buying into this rumors about Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan coming to LA?
So, LA, I'd do this move in a heartbeat as far as Buddy Hield for Kyle Kuzma. If I'm the Lakers, yes, I'll do that in a heartbeat. If you want to do just a straight up swap like that, 1,000%. If I'm the Sacramento Kings, you have to give me way more to take on Kyle Kuzma. I'm not impressed. Kyle Kuzma's best year was his rookie year, and ever since then, he's progressively gotten worse. Whereas Buddy Hield, it's not like he's taking huge leaps and bounds, but at least Buddy has kind of maybe not necessarily plateaued, but he's been at least at a steady level. You know what to expect out of him. So do I like that move for the Lakers? Yes. For the Kings, you have to give me more. The Lakers have put themselves in a tough situation because Dennis Schroeder, obviously turning down that contract earlier on in the year, might have actually ended up being a blessing in disguise for the Los Angeles Lakers, because Dennis Schroeder was a complete no-show in the playoffs this year. And I like DeMar DeRozan. I'm a big fan of the mid-range game. I think that it is a lost art in today's NBA. But like you said, they need someone who, one, can help run the offense, because one of the biggest things that you saw LeBron struggle with, or this Lakers team struggle with, was losing Rondo meant LeBron had to take back so much more of the responsibility of running this offense. Having Rondo alongside him last year really took some of that pressure off of him and allowed him to be aggressive and to focus more so on scoring. That's why I think Kyle Lowry is a perfect fit for the Lakers. He's someone who can hit threes for you. He's someone who has had his struggles in the playoffs before, but that's typically when he was expected to be the best player on the team. Now he's in a situation where he's the third option. I think that fits perfect for him. and I think he's someone who can help run that offense. I was actually surprised that they didn't pull the trigger on this trade this year during the season. I was surprised.
I'm surprised Miami didn't either, to be honest with you. I'm surprised Miami didn't either.
Yeah.
I was surprised he stayed in Toronto, but if I'm the Lakers, Kyle Lowry is definitely who I'm looking for.
Okay, so you bring up a great point here. I'm going to propose a trade. I'm running the Dallas Mavericks, right?
Mhm.
I'm running the Dallas Mavericks. I'm trading Kristaps Porzingis to Boston. Here's Boston has no bigs who can stretch the floor. He could be the third or fourth option, getting 15 and 8 per game, and that's fine. And what you do in return is you put Kemba Walker in Dallas. And here's why that helps. Kemba Walker playing with Jason Tatum and Brown was the third option there. He doesn't need to bring the ball up. You give Luka some rest. Luka has been exhausted in the fourth quarters. Now, Luka can play off the ball. He doesn't have to dribble, and penetrate. He could do the old Reggie Miller trick. Stand in the key, sets two screens, go one side, become a catch-and-shoot player. Kemba Walker can take the pressure off Luka. Luka cannot keep this pace up. He's going to get injured. He's going to be exhausted. Tyrese, start with you. Where is Porzingis going, and do you like that trade?
The Boston trade actually makes a lot of sense. I feel that Kemba is actually he's run his time out in Boston. He's been underperforming the past couple of years. They tried to see him as a replacement for Kyrie, and it really didn't work that way. I feel they should have kept Terry Rozier and gave him his money, but that's a different story for a different time. But Kemba Walker to Dallas actually isn't a bad trade. I feel for Boston, because Boston needs a big.
Boston hasn't had a guy who could shoot from the perimeter in years. Remember, they had Enes Kanter for a while. They had some success with some big guys, but you want someone who, when Brown and Jason Tatum drive through the paint, a big who can step outside and stick it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Porzingis is perfect to fill that role. And at the end of the day, only thing we have to worry about with Porzingis is his health. And if his health becomes a factor, then we start to question his value for team. And so I feel that that trade would be necessary for Boston, because they're not really getting anywhere with Kemba Walker. And I feel that having Porzingis is an extra asset compared to having a point guard who really can't produce as well as they would like.
Well, thank you for our first end of the day comment here, our little bingo drinking card. So cheers, everyone. Very nice, Tyrese. Thank you for saying that at the end of the day. So, Edward, I'm going to say this. Porzingis was very unhappy. But here's my thing. I've said this for 3 weeks in a row. Giannis has gained 55 pounds of muscle. Porzingis hasn't. Porzingis has no post-up game. When you're a 7-foot jump shooter, how are you mad? How are you mad that you're the second option behind Luka? What does he have to be angry about?
It's really tough, because I don't understand his reasoning behind being mad. I mean, it's Luka Doncic. Let's be real here. Like, this guy has carried your team the past 2 years, been the best player on the team against the Clippers the past 2 years. It's okay to be the second option when you have Luka Doncic on your team. Now, for his game in totality, it's shocking to me. I mean, a guy that tall, obviously he's not that strong, but he should be in the paint sometimes. I would say this whole thing about camping around the three-point line and it's not being efficient as you would want him to be is not really working, and which is why I feel as though he shouldn't be in the Mavericks uniform anymore. I do think that the Celtics trade would be a great option. That was actually my first trade for him, because I do think that the Celtics have been neglecting the big man for years now. And, he could provide some shooting. He could provide some length for the team, as well as Kemba Walker going to the Mavericks. That would be a good option as well, too, because let's face it, Luka Doncic, he does get tired. He does get, a little gruesome when it comes to the fourth quarter and it comes to bringing the ball up the court and trying to put the scoring load on him. So, it's kind of risky for me in a sense, because both players have a lot of baggage coming with them. But, for the reward aspect, it could be a great reward for both teams. But Kristaps Porzingis, he has to find a way to develop a post game, because there's no reason why he should be that tall. He has so many mismatches that he just chooses to camp around the 3-point line. It's just not working.
Listen, when you're not a complete player, you should not be bitching and complaining that you're not getting more shots. You're not a complete player. End of story. And I was the biggest Porzingis fan when they drafted him. We'll get Dom, and then Stevens in the background. We'll get him next. Dom, there's a story that just came out with Mark Cuban and Luka Doncic, and one of Mark Cuban's right-hand man. Apparently, Luka and him got into a severe shouting match. Luka's about to sign a 5-year, $200 million extension, but there's talks that Luka wants this guy out. I give Luka the keys to the kingdom, okay? Dallas has not been good for the last few years. A lot of that has to do with they held on to an aging superstar and Dirk Nowitzki and never built around him. What do you? What? I think Mark Cuban's a very good owner. Treats his players like gold. No state tax in Dallas. I always say this: if you play in Texas, you have 3-hour flights. There's no 6-hour flights, 7-hour flights, 5-hour flights. What's going to happen here? Is this going to come to where, it's almost like the Aaron Rodgers situation where Aaron Rodgers says either you fire the GM and the guy calling the shots, or I'm not coming back? Or do you think Lucas signs it and this is all overblown?
I think it's overblown. I think Luka's happy in Dallas. I don't think one shouting match, even if this is something that maybe he and that other individual have had problems with before, I don't think it's enough to make Luka just completely drop everything and say, get me out of here. I think Luka's happy in Dallas. I think he fits perfectly in Dallas. Dallas is so much embraced more than any other team, the whole international player wave. Like I said, he just fits in Dallas, and he's been way too good to let go. Like you said, I give him the keys, and Luka, like, what do you want? Like, that's really what it is. I'm coming to Luka and saying, hey, what do you want us to do at this point?
No, and Mark Cuban pretty much caters to his players, so maybe, but he's also very loyal. We've seen that over the years. He's very loyal to coaches, very loyal to players. So we'll see what happens. All right, we're going to bring Steven on. Steven, thanks so much for joining us. I know you had some technical difficulties, but we got you on. And I want to talk about Kevin Love because I got to still assume that there's some value for him, right? I mean, he's a double-double guy. He can still shoot the three. Let's face it, he was the last remaining guy on that team that won a title. Do you see their value for him, and where could he end up?
Yes, I see plenty of value for Love. The issue is that contract that he has and the meshing with whatever other players or specific teams that are interested in might run into. But yes, there's definitely value for him, even on his contract and at his age. He's one of the best playmakers at the power forward position.
Phenomenal outlet passer, like gets the ball and you could just go down court. Limited defender, but definitely a good rebounder. And one thing I love about Kevin Love is he's embraced the Cleveland community. When COVID came, he paid I think $200,000 donated to the people who work in the stadium. So they love him, but there's got to be a team out there that can really, really use a guy like that, even if it's 15 minutes a game, right?
Absolutely. And then another great point to bring up would be the fact that he's a rather good three-point shooter.
Yeah. Stretch the floor.
Space the floor, exactly. You can put him in drop coverage and keep him away from, those switch scenarios that almost killed Cleveland a couple of times in the finals.
Yeah.
There's ways to mask his weaknesses, and they can work in today's NBA for sure.
Definitely with Kevin Love. Okay, one of the things that's driving me crazy, guys, is I really don't want to see this. The Knicks are talking about John Wall. I mean, just another guy who doesn't really, injury prone, takes bad shots. Listen, he puts up very good assist numbers, but John Wall is all about me. He's not about the team. Come on, Edwin, we're not going down this road if we're the Knicks, are we?
I hope not. I really hope not. This would be a bad move, seriously. I mean, you have so many injury concerns. There's the idea that he takes bad shots. Not really a guy who shoots the three ball too well. I mean, he is a gifted player. Let's not get it twisted. He's a gifted passer. A guy that can get a bucket. But is this what the Knicks really need at this moment? I mean, I think that the Knicks would need a guy that's bona fide, who could score the ball, who has the best availability possible, because availability is the best, in my opinion. And you shouldn't be committing your future into a guy who hasn't been playing ball in the past 5 years, to be honest. John Wall for me would be a risky move.
And here's the thing, too. He's going to take shots away from R.J. Barrett. He's going to take shots away from Reggie Bullock. He's ball-centric. He's dribble. I'm not going to say he's, a Stephon Marbury, where he just a ball hog. But I don't see John Wall making anyone better on the Knicks. Dom, please tell me the Knicks aren't doing this. What's the upside?
I don't think they're doing. I mean, the upside is, I guess he would be a better first option than Julius Randle. I guess.
Wow.
Is the upside? That's really all I can see. I mean, And even for me, if I'm John Wall, I don't want to go to New York either. Like, what? I want to go to New York so Tom Thibodeau can run me into the ground like he did Derrick Rose. I'm okay.
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'll stay in Houston. I'll take my lumps here, or you guys can find somewhere else to get me. I don't think it makes sense either way.
Okay, Tyrese, can I say right now that if Kyle Lowry ends up in Miami, they are the clear favorite because we don't know what's happening with Brooklyn. James Harden's going to play tonight, but can I say Kyle Lowry makes them a legitimate NBA contender?
In the East, I don't. Even I mean,
Guys,
let me put it like this.
wait. They're 1 year away from going to the NBA Finals. You got Jimmy
No.
Butler. You got Bam Adebayo. All you guys love Eric Spoelstra. So what's going on here?
After what I've seen this playoffs and seeing how Jimmy Butler has performed and how Bam Adebayo has performed, considering the fact that they came out of the bubble, everybody had all of these expectations for Tyler Hero, for everybody, for Duncan Robinson, and they just did not perform. I don't think Kyle Lowry is that factor that will get them past the Bucks or even the Nets. It's really hard for me to see that for Kyle Lowry to really carry his team into the discussion where it's like, oh, these are one of the best teams in the East. No, I feel they have a lot of they're gonna make the playoffs. That's without a doubt. But to be able to get past all the juggernauts in the East, I don't think that's enough. I don't think Kyle Lowry is enough.
I love that this picture was photoshopped, and yet they couldn't trim down Kyle Lowry's gut. So to me, Kyle Lowry looks like a kid who just always has baby fat on him. And they couldn't even trim this picture down, which makes it funny. All right, Steven, you're a betting man here. What are the odds that these two are back in Washington going into the training camp? And again, Washington is talking about bringing in Porzingis. What do you think? Are these guys coming back, yes or no?
Yes, I would say they'll be back next season. I feel like they have unfinished business. They had an unfair slate through the COVID and the injuries mixed in on top of that. And it's Scott Brooks, so they'll see what they got with there.
Okay, Edwin, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, okay, what's the upside here? Even if healthy, you're a 7th, 8th seed, maybe a 6 at best, and you're losing in the first round. So why not, Edwin? Why don't we blow this team up?
I think it's too soon to be, to do that. I do think that, having Russell Westbrook, having Bradley Beal, those are two bona fide backcourt stars. Even though they have kind of, at least Russell Westbrook for that matter, has deteriorated in the past, I do think that you have to find a way to put some more pieces on this team, whether that be bringing Kristaps Porzingis. I heard rumors about a possible trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. That could be an option too, and these guys, if that happens, if either one of these moves happens, I think that'll be enough to get them over the hump for 8th seed. They could possibly make some more noise. It could be a whole offensive change and scheme change for the entire team. And, now we're looking at a team that's fighting for 5th or 6th, compared to what they were last season. They got hot last season. They played well last season. It was a good season overall for them, I guess, since they made the playoffs. But I think it's a little too soon to break up this team. You still have Bradley Beal, you still have Russell Westbrook. These guys need more time.
Okay, Dom, I'm going to say I rip off my Band-Aid, right? I rip when I know that's it. What are we saying here? We've seen Westbrook in the playoffs. Yep. We're going to get into this in a couple minutes. He's not Ben Simmons where he disappears, but he overpenetrates. He can't shoot the three. He'll struggle at the foul line. What is the upside here, Dom, for keeping these guys together?
So, I mean, they'll sell tickets. They'll sell tickets. Watching the Wizards will be interesting to watch. If me personally, I want Bradley Beal out of Washington so bad. Like we were talking about Portland earlier. If you can pull off a trade where you send like CJ McCollum down to Washington and say, hey, we'll maybe see CJ McCollum, a couple first round picks, you give us Bradley Beal, we pair up Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard, I think you have something cooking in Portland then. But that's me living in fantasy world. But I think Bradley Beal, I don't think is the problem, but I do think that Bradley Beal, because I just don't think Washington, they're kind of just stuck in a treadmill. Like, yeah, you made the playoffs this year. Russell Westbrook will win you a bunch of games during the regular season. Postseason time, forget about it. If he's your best player come postseason, you're not making it far. You're not making it out of the first round, if we're being completely honest. So while I do think Bradley Beal, I think, is the piece that you can move if you want to try and start the rebuild, because you will get a lot for Bradley Beal. I think you get more for moving Bradley Beal than you do for moving Russell Westbrook. So
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And finally, before we get into the playoffs, okay, so Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, pays his assistants more than anyone else in the NBA. Steve Ballmer pays his executives more than anyone. If they don't win a title, Steve, are they blowing this up? I think they are.
Yeah. I think if they don't win it this year, the first domino to fall will be figuring out what's going on with Kawhi Leonard and that option. If he opts in, then they get to see what they can do with potential coaching changes on the staff behind Tyronn Lue, or if Kawhi opts out, then that just opens up another big time gaping hole. So I think the first domino would be seeing what happens with Kawhi Leonard.
All right, Tyrese, let me ask you this question. Are
Mhm.
they going to, if they don't win the title, which I don't think they're going to, is
Mhm.
Paul George the first to go no matter what Kawhi does? They got to have a
If
scapegoat, right? Because they're not going to fire Tyronn Lue.
I don't think they're gonna fire Tyronn Lue, but I honestly feel, in my opinion, I feel that if they don't win, Kawhi is he's gonna take his talent somewhere else. And from that decision, I feel Paul George will kind of try. I feel like they will try to ship Paul George along with Kawhi at that point to try to rebuild the team, because at this point it's just been an array of failures for the Los Angeles Clippers at this point. So I feel that if they don't get this done, it'll just be another X added onto the long list of failure that this organization has had. But I do feel that, even if they do, even if Kawhi does decide to stay, even if they lose, Paul George is an iffy factor right here, because Paul George is valuable. You can get something
By
decent
the way,
and
he's
try to
playing
build
very
around.
well. He's playing very well
Yes.
right now.
Yep.
finally,
So yeah, so I feel that even if they do get something, they probably can get something for Paul George at the end of the offseason. But even if they're successful, I think they keep him. If they're not, I believe everything is gonna be blown up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be blown up. All right, guys, hang tough. Hang tight. We're talking to the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew live on the Full Monty Sport. Make sure to like this, give us a thumbs up on this show, and subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel. When we come back, we're going to break down the entire NBA playoffs. You're listening to the Full Monty Sports Show live on YouTube.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today.
All right, guys, this portion of the show is brought to you by East Coast Cover. The smart commuter cover was designed with 40 years of riding experience and delivers a high quality, long lasting American made product with a size and style to cover whatever two wheels you ride. It's also the first cover with an adjustable fit and attached backpack for quick and easy storage. Go to ECKNYC.com. Proud to announce they just partnered up with the Bike Hub in Jersey City, New Jersey. Shout out to my old stomping grounds, Jersey City, New Jersey. They partner up with the Bike Hub. If you don't live in New York, no worries. You can order from anywhere across the country. Again, go to ECKNYC.com and check it out. All right, guys, let's talk about the NBA playoffs right now. Obviously, James Harden is playing tonight, so let's start with that. This Kyrie Irving injury was brutal. It was just awful to watch. When I saw it, I was like, he's done for the series. Now, here's the problem. I think that if Kyrie did not get hurt, he would James Harden would not be playing tonight. James Harden would not be playing tonight. So let's start with you, Edwin. I think that this series is still Milwaukee's to win. I think they're just a deeper, better team. How do you feel this plays out tonight? And what do you expect from Harden tonight?
Actually for Harden, for me, I think that he'll have a hard time getting back, into the groove of things. This is a risky move for me. It's kind of similar to what they did for KD in the finals against Toronto, rushing him back,
Good
because
point.
the
Good
team
point.
needs him. But Milwaukee, man, Milwaukee for me, Jeffrey, if you're listening, your team cannot blow this tonight. Seriously, you have an injured Harden, you have an injured Kyrie, you have all to worry about is KD and his scoring prowess. So for me, you guys have to come out, be the dominant team, show out. there can't be any layoffs. There can't be any laid eggs on the court tonight. Seriously, because if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, I need to take care of business tonight and then go back to Milwaukee and finish this thing off. If I'm being honest, whatever happens tonight, it needs to end in a result of a win. If it doesn't, it's not looking too good for the Milwaukee fans.
Dom, something happened after game 2, and I've been saying this for about a year and a half. Chris Middleton has all the skills, but he would just pull a 3 for 17. Something happened with him after game 2. Chris Middleton had 35 and 15 in game 3. He's rebounding the ball. He's passing the ball. He's getting in guys' faces defensively. He's challenging Kevin Durant. Where has this Chris Middleton been? Are you shocked that he's really become the number one option down the stretch?
Yeah, because I thought that's what they brought Drew Holiday in. I thought it was really going to be like towards the end they were going to start going to him and try and feature him more. But I think this really kind of started the series prior when he hit that game winner against Miami in round 1 in game 1. I think that really boosted his level of confidence. I think this Milwaukee Bucks team also smells blood in the water. Like, I think that's part of it. It's like, all right, this Nets team is banged up. We've got a chance. We're at home. They won, brought it up 2-2. By the way, the Bucks are up 12-3 right now, so they're off to a good start. It's just Chris Middleton, and like I said, I've always said he's good. He's just not dependable, right? Like, I don't ever want to have to hang my hat on whether or not Chris Middleton shows up in a playoff game. That's worked for Milwaukee so far, right? That's what I said. Like, having your back up against the wall, being down 0-2, that sometimes it brings the best out of people. So I'm definitely surprised that he's doing this with consistency now in games that matter. We've seen him do it before in the regular season. We've seen him maybe pull one game in a series where he'll go for 30. The consistency in these games that mean something now is what's shocking.
It's amazing. First, let's wish Jeffrey a very happy birthday. He's at the Milwaukee Bucks game. And yes, Jeffrey is the GOAT. No doubt about that. I love that kid. He's so funny. All right. The thing that I love about this team, Milwaukee, is they were soft last year. Okay? You bring in Drew Holiday, then you bring in PJ Tucker. Listen, no one can stop Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant can score 25 in his sleep. But I got to be honest here. PJ Tucker is making it hard for Kevin Durant. Are you shocked at how physical he's been? He's getting in his face. He's challenging him. Are you shocked at how good PJ Tucker has been?
Not in the slightest. On brand for who PJ Tucker is. If anyone that knows his roundabout story to get into the NBA and how he built his own brand, there's no surprise that he's being this physical. What might be a surprise is that the officials are allowing him to be this official, to be this physical with Kevin Durant. But this is
listen, the refs let a lot go, but I like that in the postseason. I do like that. Tyrese, would you say right now that when they got PJ Tucker, this is what I thought last game. He can't go games without scoring. He's got to be a threat out there. He had 13 points the other night, shooting from the corner 3. That's where he made his living in Houston. He's physically pounding Kevin Durant as best as he can. Give us your thoughts these next 2 games, with or without Kyrie. Is this the Bucks series to lose?
It is the Bucks series to lose, to be quite honest, because the Milwaukee Bucks are actually playing with confidence. And when you have Chris Middleton and Giannis both having 30 and Chris Middleton hitting corner shots consistently, it's really hard to beat this team. Even considering the fact that the Nets are underhand, the Bucks are they're not taking their foot off the gas. And the only way I see the Bucks really collapsing is if Chris Middleton disappears, if Giannis disappears, and they let KD go for 50 every night. And judging by how they can defense on Kevin Durant, they will not let that happen. They will let PJ Tucker foul out before they let KD drop 50. So I feel that this is really the Bucks. This is their it's a testament to see where the Bucks are in terms of like where they're with their championship bravado. Can they actually get through this? This is something that they can win. This is a slap on the wrist for them. They have an underhand team. They have a great team. They have a fully manned team, and there's no excuse for why they should lose this series.
And I think PJ Tucker would punch Kevin Durant as he's going for his 50th point. I think PJ Tucker has too much pride. So he's going to go, all right, we're going to switch gears here, guy. I'm just going to put this up here because no one gave this kid any credit. No, I have the Hawks winning this series. But first, we start the show with the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to go with the bad. I'm done with Ben Simmons. I am absolutely done with him. He did not take a shot in the fourth quarter because he was afraid that they might foul him and go to the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done with him trying to talk smack that he could guard Trae Young when Trae Young dropped 25 and 19 on him. And I'm done with Joel Embiid going 0 for 12 in the second half because he's out of shape and he's too tired. Guys, the 76ers' two best players did not show up in the second half of that game. Dom, start with you.
Yeah, it was a bad showing for them. I'm still not trusting the Hawks to win this series. I agree with you on Ben Simmons. I'm not jumping off the boat on Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid dealt with injuries a lot this year, and that kind of messed with his shape and body weight and all that other stuff, and just his overall conditioning. Ben Simmons, though, I've been out on Ben Simmons for a while now because I don't want a player who's afraid to do anything, and Ben Simmons is afraid to do a lot. I was one of the people that said earlier on in the year that if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm giving you Ben Simmons for, Ben Simmons and a couple first-round picks or whatever you want to get James Harden in here when James Harden was still in Houston. I thought the 76ers should have pulled the trigger on that trade. They didn't. Now we're kind of seeing where this has gotten them.
I mean, you don't take a shot in the fourth quarter. At the end of the game, your starting point guard is on the bench because the guy can't shoot. And I'll be honest with you. There are certain players who they just do this as a job. Ben Simmons has not gotten a better jump shot. I give all the credit in the world to Giannis. At least he tries. Ben Simmons doesn't even try to shoot a jump shot. He's like, I'm here for 48 minutes, and then I'm out. Like, I don't understand how he hasn't gotten better. And I'll bring this up, too. Steve, do we think that the Danny Green injury is hurting the Sixers more than we normally? People think of Danny Green, role player, hit a couple of threes, but he's so long, he's so smart. You think this is hurting them?
Yes, it's hurting them. Anytime you lose one, if not the only player on your roster with championship experience, that's gonna hurt you. Especially considering, all that he brings defensively and spacing the floor on the 3-point line. So yes, no question it's hurting them.
Okay, I'm gonna read this to you guys right now. First, we'll start with Tyrese, then we'll end with Edwin. If the Sixers lose this series, Tyrese, are they blowing this thing up, or is Doc Rivers say, "Hey, it's the first year, we need the system to come back"?
In my honest opinion, I feel the Sixers are another team that have consistently underperformed in the playoffs, and with virtually the same cast. They've added a few more pieces, such as Seth Curry, Danny Green, and they've made their way. They had a really good regular season, and the only thing I feel that will really break this team up is, I feel chemistry issues are one thing I feel would break the team up, but I don't really think that's an issue. But I don't think they should break the team up. I feel Doc Rivers is probably going to give it one more year. If they don't get it, if they lose this year and they go to the playoffs next year and repeat the same thing they've been doing for the past 5 years, talking about the process, I think they blow the team up.
I don't think they will. I think Doc Rivers is going to say, "Hey, we need another year." I'm going to read you guys these stats. Okay, going back to the Knicks game, 32 points, 10 assists, 30 points, 7 assists, 21 points, 14 assists, 27 points, 9 assists, 36 points, 9 assists, 25 and 18 last night. 25 and 18. Edwin, he's putting up Isaiah Thomas numbers. He's dominating the two best defenses in the NBA in the Knicks and the Sixers. This kid is a bona fide superstar, and nobody cares about him.
Hawks and six. You see, Trae Young is a fearless leader, as we all know this. 3 road games, 3 wins. That's tough to do as a young team, as a young leader, and he's done that already, right? The youngest player to record that game that he did last night, that was phenomenal, even though he didn't really shoot the ball well. And let's be honest, the 76ers, to me, had a good shot to win the game. But, Joel Embiid, for whatever, Ben Simmons couldn't shoot. Tobias Harris disappeared as usual. He also messed up my parlay, by the way. We won't get into that. For me, Trae Young has done his job, seriously. And for him to be able
He's
to
been the
lead.
best point guard in the
Yes.
postseason that's not named Chris Paul. And
Yes.
Chris Paul can't
That's
shoot
facts.
like him. And Chris Paul is a very good defender, not as good as he used to be. But if this was the 80s, this was the 90s, people would say that, like they did with Isaiah Thomas,
Mm.
this kid's incredible. Dom, why do you
Mhm.
think it's like, he's just a shooter? He's kicking their ass.
Well, I think that goes to the fact that not a lot of people. For a lot of people, this is their first taste of Trae Young since he was in Oklahoma. You have to understand, since he's been in Atlanta, he's had 5 televised games.
Yeah.
So no one has really seen what he's doing. Like me being here in Georgia, I've had a closer look and I've been able to see his ascension and see the growth year by year. But for a lot of people, this is kind of his coming out party. So he's kind of catching people by surprise, where it's like, wait, I thought he kind of went to Atlanta and fizzled out. No, he's doing what he has always been doing. He's been doing this all year. He's been doing this since he got to Atlanta. And now it's just being showcased on a broader stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's move to the West. One of the things I loved, I'm sorry, Keith, your team got swept. We called it last week. I mean, you thought they were going to win. We knew Phoenix was going to win. But one of the things I loved, Chris Paul, whatever, when the Joker got a flagrant foul, the superstar on the team, Devin Booker, 5 inches shorter, 60 pounds lighter, got in his face. Talk about Chris Paul's leadership. That's what leaders do, right? For all of LeBron's greatness, we never saw LeBron when a fight goes on or someone to go defend his players. This, to me, epitomizes the superstar that Devin Booker is and the leadership and how they're taking a step forward. Edwin, am I crazy to say that this is the best team in the Western Conference? They will beat the Clippers. They will beat the Utah Jazz if they play them.
I'm still on the Utah Jazz bandwagon. I still do believe that they're in a good spot right now. But the Suns are playing good basketball. Seriously, I didn't expect a sweep against the Nuggets. I know. But the Suns, for me, are playing really good basketball. I mean, Chris Paul using his experience to lead the Suns to where they are right now. And we're not talking about the great players that they have so far. Crowder and Miles Bridges, for me, Mikal Bridges has been playing phenomenal. 3-and-D guys who have been doing their job so far this whole playoffs. Crowder catching fire a little bit late. Bridges playing a more consistent role. And obviously you have the guys like Devin Booker giving you about 25 a night. DeAndre Ayton, for me, dominated that whole series. Held Nikola Jokic to under 30 points per game, which is a big drop-off to what he was averaging in against the series against the Portland Trailblazers. So for me, the Suns have great energy. They're tough. They're well-rounded, and everything. So I'm really looking for them to make it a good series against the Utah Jazz. But I'm still on the Utah Jazz bandwagon.
We'll get to that in a minute to close out the show. But, Steven, one of the things I love about this Phoenix Sun team is they're so well coached. And the part of it has to do with Chris Paul running things. I love when Chris Paul's out there with the second unit. It's a great job by Monty Williams to have Chris Paul play a lot of minutes against the opposing defense's second unit. But talk about how they never beat themselves, and it's almost like they never take a bad shot either.
Well, I kind of equated it to when they acquired Chris Paul, and then when they acquired Jay Crowder in free agency. I kind of compared it to how Miami made their acquisitions last season, and I expected the Suns to make a run no different than that. So I've called the Suns all season Miami West, and they're right in alignment with that, and it's because of the chemistry that they've developed. It's because of the culture they've established, even last season with Monte Williams, and then integrating Chris Paul into all of that. Now they're reaping the benefits of all the things they've gone through. They haven't skipped any steps in the process, and they're here.
Tyrese, one of the things that really I was concerned with is when you look at this team, Devin Booker's going to drop 30 when he's hot. But Chris Paul to score 20 points a night in a playoffs, and I was like, who's their number 2 scorer? But they're doing it with guys by committee. Like Edwin said, Malik Bridges, Jay Crowder will hit a big 3. Payne coming off the bench. Are you concerned that when they go up against really, really, let's say, the elites of the elites, they don't have enough scoring?
It's not that they don't have enough scoring. I feel that it's Chris Paul's playmaking that opens up everything else for the team. Chris Paul has that team running like a well-oiled machine, and this isn't new for anything. Chris Paul, everywhere he goes, he has the team running like a well-oiled machine. He's done it to Blake Griffin. He's done it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now he's doing it to the entire Phoenix Suns starting lineup. So I am not surprised that Chris Paul's is. Well, it's not really an ascension. He's always done this. So Chris Paul is really just that. He's that it factor that has that offense running, whether it's him making plays or it's him getting here on the sideline when they miss a pass during a set. Chris Paul is the on-court coach that you need for a team like that, a young team that's getting really good playoff experience. Everybody on that team, you have veterans that's on the team that have been to finals, and you have young guys that are willing to learn on the team. That's one thing Chris Paul is really good with, is developing his younger players and making sure that they're good so when he leaves, they'll be fine with the franchise after he goes. So I feel that Chris Paul is the guy that he's the reason that this offense is really good. And I don't think the offense is they won't miss a beat. I really don't think they'll miss a beat.
No, I love that everywhere Chris Paul goes, every player on the roster knows their roles, and it's almost like with Aaron Rodgers. If you're open, he's going to get you the ball, and he wants you to catch the pass, or he wants you, in this case, to shoot the ball. Dom, before we get to the final Utah Clippers series, is Chris Paul a top 5 point guard of all time?
Oh, goodness.
You're saying no. You're saying no.
He's like 6 or 7 for me. So like for me, my top 5 point guards of all time, I have like Magic, I have Isaiah, Steph is in there. I don't care what anyone says.
I agree.
Stockton, Oscar Robinson, right? Like that. That's kind of how my top 5 shapes out. Chris Paul is literally like 6 or 7. So like he's not quite there now. Winning a championship this year would do leaps and bounds for where he goes. It would probably definitely not put him into the top 5, but I think top 5 debatable, top 10 without question. Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards of all time. It's just, for me personally, my top 5 is 6.
Okay, is anyone putting Chris Paul in their top 5? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Tell us why.
I'm putting him in my top 5. I mean, he's top 5 in assists all time. He's top 5 in steals all time. He makes every team better. He's been doing it since he was 21 years old. He came to the league, gave the defending champion Spurs a scare. He's taken down all type of superstars in the playoffs, though he's had a few falters, most of them not specifically to his fault. But he's the quintessential point guard. He scores. He assists well. He doesn't.
He was an elite defender for several years.
Yes.
One of the things that I always get in trouble for saying this is John Stockton is not in my top 5. 13 points per game all time, was not an elite defender, undersized, used to get posted up all the time and beat. I think there's a video of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who was former Chris Jackson of LSU, dropping 50 on John Stockton like it was his job. I mean, so to me, John Stockton, everyone I know, the assist, he was never an elite scorer and he was never an elite defender, but that's an argument for another show. Okay, I'm going to come out and say it, guys. I have the Clippers winning this in 6 in my Nuts and Bolts Sports article, and here's why. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard can get any shot they want. They can get any shot they want. Bogdanovich can't defend. Joe Ingles can't defend. They're doing a very smart thing by going small and making Rudy Gobert stay on the outside. Then he's got to rush when Kawhi gets 1 or 2 feet into the paint. This Utah team was just a terrible matchup for me, and we'll start with Evan because he has them going to the NBA Finals. They can't defend the wings. They can't defend these guys. Joe Ingles is a terrible defender. Jordan Clarkson is a terrible defender. How does Utah win this series? I don't see it happening. Paul George is playing great because it's like he's out in the schoolyard, just some scrubs are guarding him.
I still do really believe in the Utah Jazz, and here's why. No Mike Conley, and we're still tied 2-2. Now, if you're a Utah Jazz fan, you have to feel really good about that. Seriously. In all honesty, I do say yes. Paul George has played well, but he's played well to me the past 2 games. What about the first 2 games? Kawhi Leonard, same thing, pretty much. It's been off and on with him. But for the Utah Jazz, I see these spurts where we have bad starts. These guys who don't shoot the ball well sometimes. Joe Ingles, Bogdanovich. You say Bogdanovich didn't do well on defense. Well, I say that he did play well defensively in game 2 against Kawhi Leonard. That was a testament that we had not really talking about. And on top of that, you still have Donovan Mitchell who can drop 40 anytime he wants. I still do believe in the deep scoring unit that they have. And once again, when they go back to the Utah Jazz, when they go back to Salt Lake City, everything will be fine for them. So Utah Jazz in 6.
My friend Andrea keeps trying to tell me to give credit to the Clippers. She's a Clipper fan, and I said they don't deserve credit. They were the 3 seed, and they went 7 games with a 6 seed, Dallas, who had 1 player. They've won their first 2 games at home in this series, which is what you're supposed to do. But I have the Clippers winning this series. Steve, am I crazy for thinking that?
Yes, I'm gonna say yes. It's because I mean, the Jazz defend their home court as well as anyone else in the league. And
Yes.
in these last 3 games, they have 2 of the last 3 games in their home court. So I think that home court, with or without Mike Conley, their role players will step up in those 2 games. And this is where they'll reap the benefits of having that number 1 overall seed and having home court game 7. That's why I think they'll win the series.
Dom, so let's say it gets to a game 7. Are you telling me Joel Ingles and Bogdanovich are going to lock down Kawhi Leonard and Paul George? Come on, you got to have the Clippers winning this thing.
So I do have the Clippers winning this series. However, I don't like their chances if it goes to 7. If they win this series, they have to do it in less than 7 because I trust Donovan Mitchell to pull it off in a game 7 more so than not necessarily Kawhi Leonard, but anyone else on the Clippers, right? Like Paul George, we know what he does when there's pressure on him. He cracks. It's just
very good point. Very good point.
I don't like So if it goes to 7, I'm gonna go Utah. However, the Clippers were down 0-2 to the Mavericks. They're down 0-2 to the Jazz. So I feel like they have them right where they want them, I guess. But I do agree with you. It's just Kawhi Leonard. If Paul George is going to continue playing the way he has the last 2 games, the Clippers will win the next 2 easily, right? It won't. And we've seen that when Paul George plays up to the level that we know he can, like when he plays up to his talent level, this Clippers team is nigh unbeatable.
Okay, but I will say this. Okay, the reason why Paul George is playing so good is because the Jazz laterally, the quickness is not there. And Tyrese, he brings up a great point. And Donovan, they trust to score 45, score 50 in a game 1. But we've seen Luka do that in the last 2 years, and the team still lose. So it's basically we'll give Mitchell 45 points. We're not letting the other shooters beat us. That's the way to beat Utah. Let Mitchell get his, like Dallas let Luka get his. Don't let anyone else score.
That's exactly what they have to beat them. And I feel with Donovan Mitchell performing, you're going to have him dropping 35 plus regardless. And I feel that the team can live with that as long as you keep everybody else at bay. Because at the end of the day, the Clippers are going to outscore them with PG and Kawhi. And the supporting cast as well. Morris played very well last night. He continues to play well along with PG and Kawhi. Then they're unbeatable. You really can't do nothing against that. And like you said, nobody can really guard Kawhi or PG on that team. So it's kind of an uphill battle for the Jazz at this point. So we will have to see. But I'm going to have to agree.
Clippers.
I like the Clippers this year. I most definitely think the Clippers are going to win the series. But 7 games is where it gets a little tough because like Paul George does crack. We've seen Paul George crack for years, and I prefer if Paul George continues this consistent play like he had 31 last night. If he continues to do what he did these past couple of games, I feel that they can get this series over with in the next couple of games.
The problem with the Jazz is Paul George is going up against Bogdanovich and Ingles, who have no lateral quickness, and then when they try to put Jordan Clarkson on him, he just shoots over him. This is just a terrible matchup. The Jazz wings are probably the 3 most unathletic, vertically quick guys I've ever seen. Okay, Steve, we'll start with you. First, tell us how we can follow you. Then give us who makes it to the NBA Finals.
All right. Again, I'm Steven Gardner. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. You can find me on any social media platform.
Oh, Steve, we lost sound there for a second. Can you hear me now? All right, we'll try to get Steve back. Edwin, Steve, stay on there. Had a little technical difficulty. Edwin, please don't take the Utah Jazz.
I am taking the Utah Jazz. You know I'm taking the Utah Jazz. Listen, Jazz is a 6. Hottest team in the NBA for me. Listen, they're the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA. Jazz and Milwaukee Bucks are going to the finals. So listen, guys, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that.
He's like the captain on the ship. He's just going down with everyone. He's not trying to get off. I'm giving you an opportunity to jump off that ship.
And I'm still taking with the Jazz. You know, I don't trust the Clippers. I really don't. I don't trust the Clippers. And once again, I will say this: Skip Bayless made a really good point. The Clippers will go as far as Marcus Morris. Yes, Marcus Morris will take them because in the last game he had 22 points at halftime. You know, that was a great shooting. But in the games that they lost, he was abysmal. Same thing for Paul George. So if those two guys don't show up, they have no shot at being the Jazz team without Mike Conley.
Okay, so Edwin, let's say they beat the Clippers. You're not concerned about a well-rested Phoenix Sun team because no matter what happens, this is going 6 or 7 games. And I got to be honest with you, I'm worried about Donovan Mitchell's ankle. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not Game 7, but they're going to have to roll it right back out.
I'm a little worried, but I will say this: the X factor for me would be Mike Conley coming back into the series. You know, if he finds a way to get back into this series, assuming the Jazz win against the Clippers, then I think that they have a good shot. And on top of that, the home court advantage as well, too. You know, it gets loud in Salt Lake City. So Mike Conley comes back. If Donovan Mitchell is at least 75%, they have a good shot of beating the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, Mike Conley needs to come back because they need to take some pressure off Mitchell, bringing the ball up, getting pushed around. Mike Conley could be a great help. All right, Edwin, thanks so much. We'll see you next week, my friend.
Sounds good.
Great job by Edwin. All right, Steve, who's going to the finals and how can we follow you?
All right, you can follow me on all social media platforms at StayTruthS.3. And I have the Phoenix Suns going to the NBA Finals to represent the Western Conference. Chris Paul is healthy. That's the one key that they need. Him and Devin Booker have found their synergy. DeAndre Ayton's defending without fouling, and he's giving high energy play. Jay Crowder is shooting the 3-ball well. Mikal Bridges is shooting the 3-ball well. I see no reason why. They won 7 games in a row in the playoffs.
Yeah.
2 series now. You know.
Talk about the hottest team in the playoffs. And who's going in the East?
Well, I would have to go with Milwaukee Bucks at the moment.
Yeah. I had the Sixers going in preseason in my article, but I'm so done with Ben Simmons. I thought he'd evolve. He hasn't. All right, Steve, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Take care. Great job by him. Great job by all. All right, Tyrese, you're taking the Suns and the Bucks. Am I wrong? But by the way, do either one of you two guys right now believe that Atlanta can win this series?
Okay, let me take that back.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyrese.
Nah, yeah. The only reason I say like I'm really content because no one's like they're not healthy, and Ben Simmons isn't playing with confidence, and that's really what the Sixers need. And without Danny Green, that's another 3-point shooter that they're missing. So I feel that the Sixers are kind of they're in a weird spot where your superstars aren't really playing up to par. You kind of have to rely on your reserve guys to kind of pick up the slack, and it's not really working. If Joel Embiid, he's nursing a torn meniscus, and he's trying out there, but nothing's really falling for him. And you have Ben Simmons who isn't really doing much, and it's like where's the breaking point for the Sixers at that point? How can the
Exactly.
I feel that the Hawks can get through this. They have the talent, and Trae Young is playing out of his mind right now. He has that team. He's running that team like with extreme efficiency, and they have a really legitimate chance of beating them. But only thing time will tell. The Sixers are hurt right now. So
Dom, I don't want to influence you. Okay, I don't want to influence you. Let me put my Atlanta background up there. I don't want to influence you. But think about this seriously. Mm-hmm. Are you going to take Trae Young in a Game 7, or are you going to trust Joel Embiid? Like, who do you trust more in a big game?
Absolutely. No. If it's just for one game and I need a bucket, absolutely Trae Young, right? Like I believe him. I believe in him. He's clutch. And that's what I said. I'll take it back. Can the Hawks win this series? Yes. Do I trust an Atlanta sports team to come through when they need to? No.
He's so jaded. No. He's so jaded from the Falcons all those 5 years ago, whatever it was, at the Super Bowl.
Listen, I told
you. The Braves all those years. All those years.
That's what I said. So like like I said, and I'm not even an Atlanta sports fan, but I've been here and I've seen the heartbreak that it brings to everyone. So, and like I said, I believe in this Philadelphia 76ers team. Yes, they're banged up right now, and I think the Hawks are better than advertised, and that's been the biggest thing is that we've seen from
Very
this
well
whole.
coached, by the way. They
Very much so.
even when they're losing, Philadelphia goes up by 20. They constantly fight back.
I said this
Mhm.
before. The biggest mistake of last year, the biggest mistake of the offseason was the Pacers letting go of Nate McMillan. I don't know why they did it. It was a ridiculous move when they made it, and it just looks way worse now. Now that we see what Nate McMillan has done with his team, and now that the Pacers fired their head coach after 1 year. So I like the Hawks, but I'm still riding with Philly. And for my picks for the finals, the health of the Nets is concerning. And with that being said, I'm going to switch up my pick from last week. I'm still riding with the Suns. I like the Suns to make it out of the Western Conference. I think the Suns are the best team in the Western Conference right now. I'm going to go 76ers and Suns in the finals.
Wow, you still believe in the Sixers. Wow. I believe in the Sixers. I believe in the Sixers all year until the playoffs started, and I bounced. Unlike Edwin, who's still holding on to the Utah Jazz, I got out with the Sixers after I saw Ben Simmons do what he does. All right, Dom, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Great. All right, let's go, Tyrese. Close it out. Who's going to the finals?
With how everything is looking right now in terms of health and everything, I feel who's coming out of the East, the Bucks. The Bucks are the most healthy team right now in the East. If they can, like I said before, if they can manage to get through the Nets, because they're completely undermanned and they're losing right now. So, well, the Nets are losing right now. So we'll see how that transpires. But if everything goes well, then the Bucks should get past the Nets, and I feel the Bucks can. Either or. I feel the Bucks are a better team than the Atlanta Hawks if the Hawks do win that series. But once again, I digress. The 76ers are still hurt, so the Bucks have the best chance to come out of the East. So I think they're going to get to that. They're finally going to get to the finals, and I see Chris Paul getting to that finals this year. I don't see Utah beating that machine Chris Paul has running in Phoenix right there. Monty Williams, Chris Paul, that team is the truth, and people have to wake up and realize that. So Suns, Bucks, that's me right there.
Yeah, I think those are the two best teams remaining, and I think the Bucks will win. I would love to see Atlanta beat the Sixers and at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals, just because I think for a young team it would be a great experience for them. I think this is the Bucks championship to lose. I agree with you. I have Phoenix. I have the Bucks. All right, how can we follow you and support you?
Follow me on Instagram at Sportsopedia. You see it right there. Sports cards. I have daily stats for incoming fans and fans that have been veterans for years. So, just follow me, interact with my posts, all of that. So, yeah, that's pretty much.
All right, we love the background with the plant.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining the Full Monty Sports Show. Appreciate it.
Of course, Monty.
All right, I want to thank the Nuts and Bolts Sports crew. Remember, like this show, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Great show as always. Right now, 42-31, Milwaukee Bucks over the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Bucks win it, and I think they close it out in 6. I want to thank all of you for watching, and of course, in the immortal words, as I'm looking for this GIF, which I cannot find, in the immortal words of Llewellyn Moss, I shall return. Carla Jean.